What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another live stream this week. So today we're going to be talking about Sony and how they fall behind the competition so far in 2023. So as everybody knows, there's been so many news pieces, if you will, about this chipset that didn't make it in, and so now there's no HDMI 2.1 on all four HDMI ports. Now I'll just save you all of the dramatics and just kind of say I really don't think it's a big deal in the sense that it's never really been that big of a deal. And that HDMI 2.1 is just kind of like, it's nice, but I don't see devices catching up. And I think we kind of have to address this realistically in that HDMI 2.1 devices are limited. We don't have, for example, 4K HDR being like the standard right now. We don't have 4K 60 as the standard on all gaming consoles, or, we still struggle with 120 hertz, and it just goes on and on from there. And the idea that now, because they lack four HDMI 2.1 ports, I don't really see it as a big deal considering the most important part of any television experience, in my view, is the picture quality. And so long as the picture quality is there, I feel like whether you get a receiver or something, you can definitely get around a lot of the issues through pass through. Now, some people claim that with pass through, their experience is just terrible or worse or whatever. I've never experienced that. I've always experienced a good, consistent experience, but you have to buy good devices, not like some cheap knockoff stuff, and you'll be good pretty much all the time. Now, in terms of the whole should you wait or should you buy, and like all the anxiety that people try to hype up with these kinds of videos, I think it's important to keep in mind like these TVs are only going to be around for a year anyway. And then the companies that you trust to make these products are going to pretty much take them out of circulation and replace them a year later. I think TVs are probably one of the most risky assets. You can't even call it an asset. It's just like something you own at this point, right? It's just one of the riskiest products you could buy because the moment you buy it, it's immediately gonna depreciate in its value. And that, for example, right now, nobody could care less about a KS8000. Nobody could care less about a Samsung, you know, Q8FN or a QN90A or a 900H or a 900G. Nobody cares about a Sony A9G. These TVs have basically, for all intents and purposes, been killed off. There's no official morgue happening here, but you get what I'm saying. And so the concept that like we now need to like jump up and down and be excited or like nervous over every little piece of technology, it's just not realistic. And I think it creates this kind of like buyer frenzy or buyer's panic to always keep you like dumping your tech and upgrading and getting new tech. Which leads me to my next thing. I've seen numerous people asking two questions lately that I will address in this live stream. One, there's a video going around of a guy that claims he can restore your brightness to its original level. Can that actually work? I'll definitely address that. And then also, we're going to talk about just the general stuff that we've been seeing pretty much all around the internet. And that's more or less what we're here to talk about. So if you've got questions, feel free to ask them. I want to say what's up to Black Wolf. Thanks for being the first one in tonight. What's up, brother? I appreciate you stopping by. Shout out to Shane. Thank you so much for becoming a new member here at Quantum TV. You can find the settings in the settings playlist. I have them organized based off of TV model, so you don't have to dive in every single manufacturer and then scroll through a bunch of models. You have it all there if you need to find something specific. And again, welcome to the VIP community. What's going on, Kelly Ravad? Thanks for stopping by. Happy Friday. Daryl, what's going on, brother? You said, when should Samsung's new QD OLED TVs be hitting the market? They should be hitting the market late spring, so you want to aim for around March 25th. That's probably around the time frame you'll see these drop. Late March, early April to mid-April, somewhere around there. That's usually when these TVs like to launch. Again, they can do whatever they want, but that's typically the time frame. What's going on, Adam? You said, hey Q, always, as always, thanks for all that you do, or for all you do. You said, I need help with my parents. Yeah, you need to help your parents. So you said, they're H9G cracked out, and you have a 55-inch TV that's Google TV, max price $600. You said, best possible cinematic image upgrade, please. Well, if the budget is $600, you probably are better off just waiting a little bit if you have the time or the ability to, because this year, pretty much everything in Hisense's line is going to go mini LED, and you can get a pretty solid set for pretty low. But if you don't have the ability to wait, then you're pretty much set getting the Hisense U8H right now on Amazon. The 55-inch is like $649. I know that's about $50 over budget, but it is the best LED I would possibly recommend you right now. I don't recommend the U7H. It was IPS garbage and it was just gray black, so I didn't recommend that. You can always go lower, but I wouldn't do that to you, especially if you're already coming from a 9 series like an H9G. The most comparable thing would be a U8H, or to wait for this year's model. Now, as I was saying a second ago in the live stream here, you have a video going around where basically a guy's saying that he can restore your TV to its original brightness out of the box. Now, I really don't feel like I should have to tell you this, but that can introduce several problems for you down the road. Now, I'll be very frank, there aren't very many manufacturers that care after that year, like we were talking about, which is kind of part of the reason I brought it up, is that TVs are usually killed off almost the second that they release. Now, this can go either one way or another because when you dive into these secret menus and you start changing things like luminance output levels or things like that that were buried in submenus of submenus, well, now you're setting yourself up to de-optimize the TV and damage something past the tolerance level programmed by the manufacturer. And we don't know what that looks like. For example, or in English, you're basically de-optimizing the TV and think of it like, you're moving one thing that could cause a domino effect to maybe destroy your picture or destroy your television. Yeah, sure, it might have an effect, but that effect might come at a grand cost to you. And I don't see where going into submenus and changing something that frankly never should have been broken in the first place is a viable solution. Now, if you're already stuck with a TV and you just kind of want what you lost back, I mean, I guess I understand, but I would never really risk that much money on the line doing something a little bit reckless like changing brightness levels like that. But again, it depends entirely on the individual and what it is that they're comfortable with. Like for me personally, I would never do it. I would simply buy a new TV or like just let it be what it is. Now, I also want to talk about kind of the year as we've seen it so far. Obviously, we're all waiting for the new stuff to come out, and it should be relatively easy to buy a brand new TV. But I also want to let you know, like, if you already own a TV right now that's pretty kick-ass, or you have options on the market right now, you're still going to be seeing more of the same. So if you're somebody that's looking for like OLED quality, you don't have to wait for this year and all the options this year. I see all these people kind of hyping up MLA technology. It's ridiculous because honestly speaking, that only applies to the G3 and pretty much everything else is going to be about what it was last year. For that, just save yourself some money, go with last year. I know I've said this in prior videos, but I do get that question. Also, another question that I have seen a lot in the past week is a lot of people saying, "Hey, I'm wondering if I should update my TVs." And it'd be various brands and manufacturers. It's not unique to anything, Samsung, whatever it is. I don't really recommend anyone updates their TV. I think that's generally a bad idea. Again, updates aren't really updates anymore. And I know this might sound like a crazy concept, but imagine a world where businesses are out for themselves and they want to turn a profit. And they want to do what's best for them, right? Like anybody else. If you go into business or you own a small business, you worked hard for that and you're not trying to come off of everything you've built. Well, imagine in that same world, it doesn't do you any benefit to have customers around that are holding on to all of your old products and not buying the new products that you're actively paying for, ad space and marketing and hiring influencers to glow about. Well, now you've got to do something about that. Enter updates. Sell the general population on an idea where updating your TV is the best thing ever, and now you've got like kind of like the best way to destroy their product and hide behind, oh, it may or may not cause issues. I mean, we've seen this happen on so many products, yet we still update. And it makes no sense to me because it's like the proof is out there the lawsuits are out there, and everybody still asks me, hey, do I update? I mean, I would love to be as respectful as I can about this, but it's just a stupid question at this point. I mean, how can you see what Apple does and what Samsung does and still go, updates maybe are still a good idea? It's just you're setting yourself up to lose money. I mean, these people are protecting themselves, so why wouldn't you want to protect yourself? That's kind of the way I view it. Now, we're all adults, and I'm not seeking to control you or the way you think or anything like that. I think, again, it's whatever you're comfortable with. If you think that updating is the best thing for you, power to you. Have fun, good luck, and I hope nothing ever happens. But if history is any indication, you may have one or two problems that'll leave you searching on some forum somewhere. And I think that for me is where I kind of have to warn everybody if you are updating, I don't ever recommend it. And I want to, again, just kind of take the time to umpteen double quadruple down, if you will, on my position that updates are not good for anyone. Just if you're not happy with your performance out of the box, take it back to the store because it's really not worth it. And that's as honest as anyone can tell you on that. Now, I want to say what's up to Craig and give a shout out to Craig. You've been very active in the community and you show your support on pretty much every single video, which is really awesome because not a whole lot of people do that. And I wanted to take the time to give you the recognition because I do see you, brother. Even on videos that you might not necessarily have an interest in, you still make the effort to stop by and say hello and to say hey and to support the work that I put out as a creator. And for me, that is honestly more valuable than anything else that probably I can run into on YouTube. So I do appreciate you and all your efforts, man. What's going on to Justin? You said, should I upgrade my Sony A80J? You said I prefer sticking with Sony. Well, honestly speaking, there's not really much of a point, and that kind of is going to lead me to the title of the video. Again, it might seem a little bit negative, but again, it's just truthful. Sony is falling behind the competition as of late. Now, they don't have all four HDMI 2.1 ports, but this has been the case for years now. Many, many years. I mean, like, at this point, it's practically a dowry with how many years they've been falling behind. It's because of the name and the influence that they carry. Now, if you're a Sony fan, you hear that and you think, man, this guy is such a jerk. Like, I can't stand this guy. All he does is put down things I care about, things I like, things I own. I don't really like him at all. But the reality is, I own Sony too. One of my mainstay TVs is my Sony AAG Bravia OLED. I literally watch it every time I watch a movie with my family. And I can tell you, like, there's a big difference in Sony then and Sony even now. And that's only from 2019. And then I compare my 2017 Sony X900E to the LEDs they have now. And it's just getting worse, not better. And I find that Sony's very creative. And it's almost like, it's super exciting. I won't even lie. It's like, the hype that they generate through their marketing team is magnificent. They'll tell you they got Triluminous Pro and you're all about it. Triluminous Max, throw out another hundo. Like, it's just a money pit because of marketing terms, but not actually real performance. Because I can tell you the cognitive processor is nothing more than the X1 Ultimate chip. It doesn't really do anything. I've compared it against the X1 Ultimate chip and the X1 Extreme chip. And the results are basically the same as we've seen. It's not some breakthrough like they claim, giving you this whole human AI experience. And I think for Sony, if you already have an A80J, there is really no proposition value right now that they can make because they don't have a QD OLED outside of the A95 series, and that's $3,000 for a 55 inch. Your A80J will still likely have better motion than that particular television. And being WOLED, you're going to basically end the entire conversation as to why you should buy the A80K successor, because it too will likely be a WOLED. So in that respect, it's just kind of like you're just showing up to the party to kind of lose money when you don't have to. You've already invested in a television. And while, again, I'm not a fan of the J series, I think Sony really kind of dropped the ball a bit with that. I feel like, if you put some effort into really locking down some excellent settings and getting it where you want it to be, you should be relatively happy until something comes out later on. Which kind of leads me to the next part as to why Sony is falling behind. For whatever reason, Sony is the odd man out. They don't really like quantum dots. That's a big fail on their part because that is truly the future. I don't know if you've heard of nano LED, but nano LED is basically the next step up, and that's where we're going from QD OLED even in micro or mini LED is nano LED, which is an actual QLED self-emissive panel. And then from there, we're going to make our way into micro LED, but of course, it'll be a while before that becomes affordable for the Commonwealth. I mean, rich people can already afford it now, but the rest of us, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm not dropping 50 grand to 500 grand on a television. It was never that serious. But again, I'll digress. Now, in terms of all this information, again, if you have questions or if you have like a position you'd like to make as well, now is definitely the time. Let me know down below. We'll have a conversation. Again, also, I know a lot of people might feel as though when I give negative information or off-putting information, maybe you feel as though, oh man, like I can't have a conversation because no, like you're more than welcome to speak your mind and be free to say something and have a conversation. So again, I just wanted to kind of make that abundantly clear for anybody who maybe might be a little put off. And again, it's important to note that like with AV in particular, this particular industry, conversation is the only way these products and these flaws are going to improve. I'm noticing like a really annoying trend now of like people who like basically gatekeep information. They'll hold on to it and then they'll put it out. And then if they're wrong about something, they'll play devil's advocate as to why they're wrong or to why it doesn't matter and play dumb and coy. And it's really annoying. And again, now I do have to say this also, like for the people watching right now. I mean, I appreciate everybody that comes out and that gives me an honest ear to listen. But if you're one of those people that come here for like purchase confirmation and all you want to do is like be told like, hey, you did a good job, I'm not your boy. I'm the guy that'll tell you straight up if you're really getting a good deal for your money because I believe that you work really hard for it. I think that in times like now, like where eggs are fucking like expensive, you have rent expensive, you have lights expensive, you have gas expensive, everything is overpriced. I would like to be very upfront with what you are and aren't getting. I mean, did you see the 77-inch Samsung S95C? That is over $4,400. Who the hell is paying $4,400 for a 77-inch TV? It's unrealistic, is what it is. Sure, you're going to have all your influencers do unboxings and you can live vicariously through them for a moment, but then reality sets in and you go back to what you can afford, like we all do, right? And I think that's the part where I come in. I like to tell you up front what these things are and are not, and many people who I guess either don't like that, get offended, identify with the product, feel bashed personally, or feel like it's just a negative fest. Hey, it is what it is. I just try to do what I can. I'm only human too, right? Now, in terms of more questions here, I'm going to say Justin says, thank you. I appreciate your truthfulness. And honestly, I really appreciate you as well. And anybody who can just kind of be truthful and hang out. Um, I'm going to mess up your name. Skiffles? I hope I've said that right. You say, hi, Q. Is the Samsung rehashing the 43-inch QN90B and using them from the new Odyssey G7 43-inch mini LED monitor? I appreciate your outlook on the industry. Well, thank you for that last little bit. I appreciate that. As far as like them rehashing stuff, you never really know as far as like production and R&D because most of these companies don't make that stuff public to YouTubers, right? They're not going to come down to like their cherry-picked influencers and go, hey, buddy, I've decided to use like some stuff from last year, or I decided to like go with this material over that one. That's not usually something most people find out. And anyone who does have that kind of information, I would be very weary as to why they have a connection so deep with them that they are getting that kind of preferential treatment and information. And that's what I'll say there. The rest is up to you to kind of figure out on your own. But I mean, for me, like when I hear people like have that level of like you're in it like all that, I'm like, why are you the only one that knows that? That's very creep, and that tells me there's a massive conflict of interest happening, and maybe I should want to get a second opinion because yours is probably influenced by who just gave you that hookup right there. That's as real as that gets. But again, I only know most of this stuff, like, because I have a bit of an advantage being a YouTuber, being able to see behind the scenes and how, sponsors will come to you and they'll ask you certain things or they'll try to get you to do certain things or sell off parts of your social media following, if you will, so that you can influence, right? That's what it's all about. And I don't have patience for that. I really don't, because where were they when I was at 1,000 subscribers or 5,000 subscribers, really, really trying to make it? Nobody cared about me. I was nothing. It's only until you get over 50,000 subscribers that you really start getting a lot of people daily saying, hey, you know what? You have value. You've got a lot of people watching you. Hey, I want in on that. Let me start giving you stuff. Let me start talking about, hey, can I become like a sponsor of your channel, buy out parts of your channel or parts of your publication? And it's like, I'm not interested in that. I'm not for sale. So everybody arrives at their own conclusion with that. But the point of that long winded speech there is to be very transparent as a content creator and tell you, like, at any point in time, I could sell out like everybody else, but I choose not to because, much like you, I've got a family. I'm working hard for mine. And I'm not trying to, do the wrong thing by anybody. So I just keep it transparent. Now, again, I'm no hero. I'm no saint, and I'm not better than anybody. I think we all make mistakes, and some people maybe do what's best for them. But for me, that's just not the outlook that I have. Now, the C2 for movies, the A80, or I'm sorry, the C2 for gaming and the A80J for movies. Just really a good setup that you've got going on there. We've got, what are your thoughts on the screen uniformity issues on LG WBE panels? I think it's the same as any other company. I won't be particularly hard on LG or anyone else when it comes to screen uniformity because they don't really have their act together. I mean, how many times have you grabbed for your remote, right? And you've always tried to get something just right. And you're figuring out that, like, no matter how hard you try, there's always something off, right? You can't seem to get it just right. And for me, like, it's really frustrating because it's always out of the box. You'll run all these calibration tests. They'll tell you they're reference accurate all day, every day. You look at it as a human being with an understanding of what the world looks like, not just what a computer tells you, and you're immediately going to be put off by these things. Now, there are people that deny that this is true, and again, we're not here to start arguments, but what we are here to do is to enjoy what we paid for. And that's why I offer the service that I offer for $5 because I feel like I can bypass a lot of the expenses for a lot of people. I mean, it's usually most of the price of a television when you hire these calibrators out. And I think that's really unnecessary. I think it's greed and people exploiting you not knowing something, much like, what we do in the photography world 9 times out of 10. And I'll be very honest with you. I'm a photographer turned calibrator. Like, that's where I got my start, photography. So nobody's beating me and creating images. I'm that dude. I'm the dude that was there saying, hey, no, you compose it this way, lighting works that way. But at the end of the day, I think that's the part that sets my stuff apart a little bit more with settings from other people. And for me, that's giving me the edge when I look at these TVs and I go, hey, you know what? That's a little washed. That's maybe not so great. Maybe that part could be a little lifted. We could change that because I know how to create digital imagery. And I think for me, the hardest thing is trying to explain that without sounding like you're bragging or you're gloating. Because truthfully, I don't have to gloat or brag or anything. I mean, I really could be one of those scumbag guys that's like, hey, you know what? Let me overcharge for everything. But I really get annoyed by it because, like, nothing's worse than when I'm at other people's mercy, right? Like, could you, like me and like a mechanic shop, for example? Well, I never became ASE certified. I don't know anything about mechanics for vehicles. But I to tell you, I always feel like I get kind of taken for a ride a bit at some of these places because I feel like they kind of use their experience against me. And I feel like when that happens, there's never like this you never recover from that lack of trust, right? Especially because, like, I'm typically a very generous and gratuitous type of person, and I always get myself into trouble in life because I'm a straight shooter, right? I tell you like it is. I'm very honest with you, but people aren't like that, right? And you'd think by now I would learn that people just are terrible sometimes, but I'm always like trying to be nice and charitable, and I'll like give tips where I don't need to or whatever, and that always backfires, and they go, oh, this guy's got a little extra money to give me, well, let's raise the price of this. And so I'll compare bills and I'll be like, well, wait a minute. You were charging me this in the beginning, and then now the bill got higher. Why, for the same service, are you charging me more? Is it because now you know I have a little bit more that like now I can give you a little bit extra? Now you're trying to shake me down? And that's the kind of stuff they get annoyed with. It's like, bro, I'm not rich. I'm just like being nice and supporting a small business. Like, what the hell is that? And it happens like that all the time to me. And the point being is like, that's the whole deal with these TV manufacturers. They'll come out and they'll have these like really awesome claims of being like super reference accurate and all this stuff. And then we'll get there and it'll be pretty much nothing. We'll be pretty dissatisfied. I've had a lot of people ask me lately to go back into the HDR versus SDR series that I would do and kind of explain it for 2023, which I'll definitely do that for you guys so that you guys understand how that whole process works. I know a lot of people with the new, I guess, new levels of brightness, quotation mark around new, because LED has been doing it for years at, 1500, 2000 nits, 1000 nits. It's nothing new for LEDs. So as far as that part goes, like I'll definitely have fun explaining how HDR versus SDR looks now. But again, that's in a later video, but I will address that. I just wanted to mention that because I have seen that question an awful lot lately. We've got Hi Q. Oh, I've already answered that one. Craig, what's going on? You said I like the Hisense and the TCL because they're the new dogs on the block trying to improve. They're aiming at the big three, and I agree. I think when stagnant companies kind of riding a reputation get a little bit too comfortable, that's where you have a situation happen now where they don't even show up at CES because they're Sony, because they want all the spotlight and all the glory because they know all they got to do is say, hey, guess what? Sony. And everybody will eat it up. But like, could you imagine, literally listen to what I'm saying right now, right? Like, it might be a stretch. I might lose like 90% of you, but I'm going to pretend for 1 second there's maybe a couple people that like will hear what I'm saying and be like, maybe he's got a little bit of a point. That's all I'm saying is to just hear me out on this, okay? Could you imagine how arrogant you truly have to be to look at an everyday person that you aren't giving a vested interest in your company and say, just because my name is on the box of a product I need you to buy, I'm going to not show up at a press conference. I'm going to not give you information. And I'm going to be behind my competition for years because my name is on that box. And I'm so special that you'll buy me anyway because I'm an established brand, which just means I've been doing it longer than a couple other people that didn't have the chance. Do you know the arrogance that goes into that mindset? And that's that greedy, like really destructive to society mindset that I just can't stand. And so of course I work diligently around the clock at really holding them to their claims of being fantastic or great. Now again, there's no money in this. I'll be very upfront about that. You won't get invited anywhere. Nobody will thank you for it. Nobody will praise you for it. None of that. In fact, quite the opposite. People will call you a quack, a hack, crazy, a fraud, scamster, all that. It doesn't matter though, because you know you're doing the right thing. And I think for me, that's my personality type with this particular industry because I see how just terrible it can be at times for us consumers in that. I mean, how long did people wait for VRR on the Sony X900H? Pretty much nobody wanted to talk about it or even touch it as a major issue. And it's only until they know that a fix is coming that they want to ever say anything bad is happening. But the world just isn't rainbows and sunshine. And I think people who pretend to be happy all the time on camera and smiling and never show an ounce of real human emotion, they're so disingenuous for me. And I disconnect immediately because I just feel like there's a better way to go about life than to just always be a plastic person. I think when you can let your flaws show, there's something so truly special about being human. And I think that's kind of where I sit. I'm not perfect and I don't want to be. And I won't apologize for not being perfect. And that's going to upset a lot of people in today's society, which is fine. They can be upset. But I feel like at the end of the day, at least if you get something out of my honesty, that's all I can ask for at the end of the day. Now, Kelly says that society trains the good out of people. And I think that's really like a very beautiful comment because there's so much more that goes into like that kind of comment because it's like you really have to listen to that. Like society trains the good out of people. Because I'm sure like you watching this video right now, we're all good people. We all start off loving animals and being peace loving, and somewhere along the way we got jaded and something happened to us that's just so terrible we felt like we couldn't recover from, or we learned that we can't be this way with certain people. And I think that's kind of like how this TV world has kind of shaped everyone. It's like you start off buying things with expectations, and then little by little, you just stop caring, and then anything is good enough because you just need an escape from that ridiculous boss or that hard spouse that's always giving you crap or nagging on you, or the kids that never really show you the respect you deserve, or whatever feeling of resentment you have in your life or regret. We all have resentment and regret in some way. No, I am not describing my life. I'm just explaining everybody's got something they're upset about. And I think that's why we turn to, digital media, is so we can escape and be free and live in a fantasy world and kind of relax a bit. And so I think that's something that I really can appreciate that Kelly pointed out because that was really a cool comment. Um, Grandmaster Yoda, what's up? You said, where can I find BT 2020 in my A80J? I can't find it. I have settings available and I'll basically walk you through the whole process, but more or less it's going to be under your video options. So that's kind of the short answer there. Messi de Goda, or wait, Messi de Goat. I read Yoda and Goat at the same time. We've got, ever heard about Apple? Yeah, exactly. Disregard and disrespectful behavior for the consumer, not to communicate by Sony. Wait, what? Disregard and disrespectful behavior for the consumer, not to communicate by Sony. Yeah, basically. I mean, I feel like for Sony, it's kind of like this thing they do every year they make a product. It's really outdated. It's kind of like a Nintendo mindset if you're into gaming at all, where it's just like they are so far behind their competition, but they feel as though all they need to do is show up and be like, "I'm pretty," and everybody will follow them around, and it's just like that's just so unrealistic. It's like Sony needs to do more than have a pretty picture. It's like, yeah, no one's taking that away from Sony. They're really good at making a pretty picture, but have you ever seen it in motion? When it starts moving and you compare it against the competitors, LG will trounce anything Sony has on the market today. I mean, and we can date this back to several years and LG would still pull ahead. But Sony still claims to be some sort of like expert in that regard or in that field. And people still laud them as such. And it's so dangerous, I would say, is the word. How we look at brands and we wrap our identities around what they used to accomplish and still hold them to the standard of the glory days, never once requiring them to hold that same energy. And it's so unfair because if you think of a boxing champ or someone in UFC or a football team, they've got to go out there and hustle and train every day and show up at the Super Bowls, show up at every single event, and make sure they're bringing their A game. But these TV manufacturers get a free pass. All they've got to do is put their name on the box, find a celebrity to just smile with the product near their face, and people go run out and buy it. I mean, it's sad that people are kind of like this way, but you're never going to change that. I know, but like it's unfortunate, I guess, is the way I would describe it. So yeah, it's definitely disrespectful for Sony not to communicate certain things to their consumer, especially like I mean, again, to the credit of digital trends. It's like with MediaTek or whatever, like long day, MediaTek or whatever, okay, not being able to produce those chips and then causing all these issues, they could have told people before people started getting excited. But I think there's a lack of respect there because first, for somebody to validate your feelings, they have to first respect you as an individual. And all we are to every business trying to turn a profit is we're just that. We are a number on a spreadsheet that they need to hit. And if they don't hit those numbers, they're cutting jobs, they're giving layoffs, they're raising their prices to offset the costs of their operations and all that jazz. So it's definitely something that I don't have any patience for, but I think it depends on the person for sure. Now, Kelly says, given the price of TVs the past few years, and they claim to do, and all they claim to do is look better, they should offer more stuff. We are in the future right now. It's 2023. Why don't TVs have 3D or remoteless voice control or something like that? That's a really good point that you're making right now. I mean, like, we really should have TVs that allow us to be able to watch everything in 3D, period. I mean, we've got 4DX, that was pretty fantastic, but 3D is very much still an option. I would love to see 3D and Quantum Dot with passive 3D, glassless or glassesless 3D options that exist on the market that we've known about. I mean, that technology was around longer than the 3DS. We don't need glasses to watch 3D, right? And the same thing can be said about our remotes. We don't have to have a remote every single time. We could literally just tell the TV to turn on, tell the TV to turn to what channel. We can do some of that stuff now, but we can't just be like, yo, operate this way or that way without Wi-Fi. And I think that's the part where we're not really in the future then, because it's more like limiting and restrictive in that aspect. Now, Kelly says the most expensive products usually come with extra gifts, but the most expensive televisions don't. Facts. Even come with 1 year of Hulu or a spare remote. It's up to the retailers to run those deals. And that's exactly true. I mean, I can tell you, like, being a photographer, when I buy a camera bundle, right, and I'm looking at, like, maybe the new Sony mirrorless full frame camera, And I go to some retailers, they bundle in bags and memory sticks and all this other fun stuff. But when you buy a TV, it's for the most part usually just like you get a TV and you'll be grateful. That's all you get. Meanwhile, you're paying the price of a used car in some cases. It's not ideal, right? And I think the lack of realism that goes into the pricing of these TVs is kind of, I think, the fad of this whole like, oh, you want that bigger 77-inch, you want that 80-inch, you want bigger is better. It's about like it has nothing to do with its inherent value or because it's truly better. It's just making people feel as though if I don't have a 77-inch TV, I won't see the game as nice. Or it's all psychology that goes into marketing. And I really implore all of you to kind of look into a little bit of some of the psychology behind the marketing tactics being used against you to know when you're truly being manipulated. Again, I'm giving you all the game right now. Like this live stream that you're hearing right now is the realest live stream on YouTube. You aren't going to hear a single YouTuber talking like this on their live stream. They are going to do everything in their power to control the situation to seem as neutral as possible because they want people to like them. I don't care, right? I like you don't care if like I like what people are saying to me and vice versa. It's like we're coming here to talk about tech in factual terms. And in factual terms, there is a big problem with the fact that we're paying a lot of money, but we're not really getting anything special for it. Like, for example, Kelly makes a great point. It's how you usually get a spare remote. I remember back when I bought my Sony W800B in 2014. Hear me on this. 2014. It came with two remotes from Sony. The first remote that it had was a regular remote, and then the second remote was a touch trackpad remote. Why can't we get back to those days where consumers were valued and truly getting more for their money? I don't know. And I feel like that's also where Sony falls behind the competition. Instead of offering what they used to offer, they're scaling back more and more each year to become a neutered version of themselves. And when that's the case, it doesn't really feel like you're getting a whole lot out of the brand. Now, I'll answer these questions here. We've got Webster, who basically says, I'm purchasing a 40, 50, or 50-inch, or possibly even 55-inch TV soon. My budget is under $500 before tax. For that, I would recommend you look at the Hisense U6 series. I would wait for the brand new one coming out this year because that one will go mini LED and you'll get better black levels for about the same price as the older models. Emmanuel says, I'm at Best Buy. What do you think of the C265 $16.99 right now? Is it a good deal or should I wait? It's a pretty darn good deal. That's about what they go for. I just think that if you're somebody who wants to experience the quantum dot color, maybe wait a little bit or maybe take the hit on the screen size a little bit. But again, it's not really that much of a hit either though because the 65-inch S95B right now is like $17.99. Now again, I do know I said don't buy that, but that is kind of to be expected to be the price for the new S95C later on. So if you wait a bit, you can get a better TV for literally the same exact money. The C2 did have some motion issues, and that's the only reason why I say that. I personally, what I'm doing, I'm waiting myself, even though I already have all the TVs I would ever need, because frankly, I'm excited to see about this auto HDR remastering that Samsung has talked about. It's honestly the first mention of HDR we've heard in a while out of any CES manufacturer. They seem to have abandoned HDR, which I'll tell you why when we talk about SDR versus HDR in an upcoming video. But for all intents and purposes, if you think it's a good deal and you're just looking for an upgrade and you don't really need all that quantum dot stuff, then by all means do it because it's still a good TV. They'll give you good color. And the last question of the night is: I feel like Sony's best TV feature is their reality creation. Crank it up, and all content looks better than without using it. And I would kind of amend that a little bit. I mean, on my end, not really again what you're saying, just like what I would say is Sony with the reality creation was revolutionary. It was one of the things that made me a diehard Sony fan with the Sony, you know, 900 series, like the 900A back in the day, the W900A, fantastic series of televisions. And I think, especially like I was a sucker for the little blue light and like the 3D and like the quantum dot that they used to offer. And it's like if you compare a Sony W900A to like kind of what they're advertising now on paper, you get so much less. We had like so many more in terms of picture levels and black levels and all the controls, right? The features were there, right? And we don't have half the smart features that we have now that I have in my TV from 2014. You would look at the menu and it's totally fleshed out, where before, maybe not so much. And I don't know, man. I totally see what you mean. Reality creation is a great feature, and it's one of the things that makes Sony like truly special. I just feel like they need to refine it, though. We need to get new features in the reality creation. Now, shout out to the Red Hood. Thank you for being a member for 14 months. Hey man, some guy on YouTube says the service menu, the S95B is called Luminance Boost, which can increase the 3D effect. Is it legit? I will have to say it's not advised, even if it is legit. I have not tested it personally. I have no intention on ever testing something like that, and here's why. From a professional standpoint, it is understood that the service menus and those particular options are literally hidden under special prompt commands. There is a reason why I only ever give you the secret menu code and tell you how to turn on things like Cal Day and Cal Night, and I purposely do not tell you things like pressing and holding the volume up button to be able to access these submenus. It does two things to your television. One, it de-optimizes it from the current patch that has been written in the code into your television. That is not advised. Two, it voids any warranty you could ever hope to have if you recently bought your TV. And it could lead to early dying out of your television through burn-in or whatever, because you've kind of overwritten the safety protocol, if you will, taking control. And you would have no idea or no way of knowing the tolerance level that has been set by the manufacturer to sustain its viability or vitality. And I just could never recommend that without running into some sort of legal issue, first of all. That's a liability waiting to happen, and I don't advise people give that kind of information out. Technical information like that needs to stay with professionals that know how and why those things are oh god, I can't speak today. Tweaked and tuned. I'm like mixing them both up. But you get what I'm saying. It's very dangerous to play around with that kind of stuff, because when you go in, and again, your TV, your choice, right? And again, power to you if you want power. But if you have to find that information out, now I'm not saying this as a derogatory thing directed at anybody, but if you have to find this out via some guy on YouTube versus like you already knew about it, I would not touch that feature, because a guy on YouTube is only going to tell you so much. You don't see them going through and breaking down what every single option in the service menu means, because they themselves do not know, because they are not technicians. They did not build up the panels. They don't understand everything about what they are doing when they are adjusting certain things that give them a result they like. And again, you see these people that'll show up on forums maybe a couple years later. I bought the Samsung S95B. Don't buy it. It's a trash TV. I already got burning. But what they'll never tell you is that they were one of the people doing stuff like this, going in and boosting the logo luminance and all that stuff. It's just not advised. It's the same reason you don't go into LG OLED and turn off, like, the ABL feature. Yeah, nobody wants ABL, but there's a reason it's there. And I think, again, people want to try to play these games where they can get around native panel limitations or firmware. The answer is simple, man. If somebody, for whatever reason, I know you've kind of already answered here back on this, but if somebody, for whatever reason, has to go into a service menu to fix brightness because of a patch, the immediate common sense answer should tell everyone in that situation, just return it. The manufacturer has disrespected you, crossed the line, violated your product, and at that point, return it, because they don't deserve your money. And that's as simple as that gets for that particular inquiry there. You said, "Oof, I'm gonna stay away from it. I'm gonna stay away from it then," and I definitely would. I'm never doing that. Like, I'll be very clear. I don't care if some phantom update happens. That's not the answer. The answer is to sell it off at a loss, get some of my money back, and then go back to the shopping market and buy an entirely different brand, remembering that they ever tried that with me, but never to damage my product. And again, some people, again, like all these things, your mileage will vary, and I think that's what makes it so scary, is because you don't really know how it'll play out. Now, that being said, I want to thank you all for watching tonight's live stream and asking your questions and hanging out with me and all that good stuff. And again, we'll do this again next week, 7 p.m. through 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, I know it's not exactly 8 p.m., but I mean, it's a pretty fulfilled live stream, I feel. We've kind of answered a lot of questions and stuff like that. And again, if you have questions, ask them throughout the week, but definitely try to make these live streams, because, you never know when you can get that one-on-one time, and it really might help make a difference in answering some of the questions you may have. But that